Here we are at Moor Lakes in Wiltshire doing a little bit of winter carp fishing. Session's not going amazingly, but I'm sure we'll winkle a couple out in the end. What I want to talk about here though is something that I use a lot in my fishing, and that is the bushwhacker and the deeper attachment. For me, this is a lethal combination when it comes to carp fishing. Not only can you be super accurate and super stealthy, but it just gives you so much assurance that you're always fishing and you're always presented. And for me, it's one of the first things that I'll pack in my van when I'm going fishing, and it's one of my biggest edges in fishing as well. But you've got to make sure that you're using it correctly. And I know a lot of people, they find the deeper quite confusing. They don't know what they're doing with it. They don't think that it's giving them accurate feedback maybe, but I can tell you if you use it correctly, it's a huge, huge tool in your fishing. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do right now. Once you connect to that deeper app, there's a few things you need to consider before you even get the deeper in the water. And the first thing you need to have a look at is the beam angle. Now, beam angle refers to the beam at which the sonar is being sent down through the water. So if you have a wide beam angle, it's going to cover a lot of water. If you have a shorter beam angle, it's going to cover a smaller amount of water. When I'm using the bushwhacker, I'll always go for the smallest one possible. That's 7 degrees. The reason I'll go for this tiny beam is because I want to know exactly what's below me so I can be super, super accurate. If I'm going out in a boat, maybe I'm trying to scan a big area, I'll go up to the 47 degree beam angle because I want to cover a larger area at once. But when I'm being really precise like I am with the bushwhacker, that 7 degree beam angle is really important, and make sure you pick that all the time. It'll be more accurate, which is the most important thing you want to consider when you're using the bushwhacker with the deeper. Secondly is sensitivity. Now, you always want to go as high with your sensitivity setting as you possibly can because it's going to give you more information of what's out there in the lake. However, there's times when you can't go really sensitive because you'll get feedback from things within the water. Take in the summer when you've got a bit of an algae bloom on the lake. If I was on 100% sensitivity, I'd be getting loads of feedback from the algae bloom, and my phone screen would be full of little yellow dots that are messing up the whole reading. So at this time of year, in the winter, when there's not too many particles going through the water, everything's sort of calmed and settled down, I will go quite high, and I could probably get away with 80, 90, even 100% sensitivity. However, as soon as I see I'm getting false feedback or false readings on that echo sounder, I'll turn the sensitivity down until it's gone and I know what I'm looking at is just the lake bed on the bottom. So with those two things taken care of, I'm ready to get the deeper out and actually use it in a fishing situation. Obviously, when I use it with my bushwhacker, before I do anything, I'll be loading up the bait into that spoon. In this mix, because it's winter, I'm not going for loads and loads of food particles. I'm going for a really attractive mix. I've got some stick mix, some liquid. I'm going to put some sweet corn in as well. I've got quite a bit of pellet in here too, mainly because of the type of fish I'm fishing for. They are quite newly stocked fish who still loving the pellet, so I'll always try and get a little bit of that in my mix. The sweet corn adds a little bit of colour and easy digestible food as well. So that's always great to add into your winter mix. And then finally I'm going to add another liquid in the worm cell, which is basically blended up worms. And as you can imagine, an attractant like that really does get the fish going. Right, after that's gone in, I'll add my baited rig. It's very important that when you're placing the rig in the bushwhacker, you make sure that you place it on the side that you're going to drop it. So if I'm going to be dropping the spoon to the right hand side, I need the line to exit from the right hand side. By doing this as well, what I'll do is I'll veer a little bit to the left when I'm going out, and it will allow me to actually steer the bushwhacker head by putting tension on the line. I'll show you what I mean when I get it out there. But by doing this as well, it means you can scan a bit of an area with the deeper and you can really have a look around for that perfect spot. So that's all loaded up, ready to go. We're going to ship it out. I've got an area where I want to present it. I know that there's some fish there. I put a little bit of bait in yesterday. So I know where I want to go for, but I've also got an idea of exactly what I'm looking for on the lake bed. So I'm heading towards those pads, but I want to fish just at the bottom of the drop-off, because I know that the pads, they're on a bit of a shallow area, but I want to fish on the drop-off. The deeper will mean that I can find exactly where that drop-off is, make sure that I'm finding a nice clear area and presenting on that. And that, I think, will be the winner in this situation. So I'm going out at the moment, we're in about 6 foot of water, and it's quite soft on the bottom. I can tell this because I've got a line of green, and this line of green is, more often than not, it's showing weed. Sometimes it will show silt if it's quite light silt, but on this situation I'm pretty certain that it's weed. And then underneath that I have got a fair bit of orange, and it's orange that is quite a consistent orange, and again this shows that it's a thick soft bottom. What I'm looking for is white a lot of the time. When it's white, it indicates that the bottom is a lot firmer. So the perfect spot that all carp anglers are looking for really is, and I've had it a few times, where you have an area for quite a while of thick weed, so you've got that green area, and then all of a sudden it'll drop off, and there'll be no green on the screen, and it'll just be a white bottom. If you can find something like that, then you've found a really, really good spot. So still I'm finding a bit of weed here. I'm more certain it's weed here because it's not a consistent green line. It's sort of sticking up every now and then, and that's obviously the weed coming up from the bottom. If it's a consistent green line, what I might be thinking there is that it's actually silt. So where we're coming over to now, you can see it's a bit more of a consistent green line. I think that's silt. But if I came back to before, where I've got a less consistent and it's more up and down, I think that would be more likely to be weed. We're still in that deep water, in that 6.5 foot, as we're going towards the pads. Coming over a bit of weed again now. I'm getting a bit of yellow on the screen now. All this means is that it's not quite as thick of a reading as the weed. So you start to learn what the different colours are. Normally, orange means it's the bottom. Normally, green means it's weed. And normally, yellow means it's actually a fish. However, this can change. It's not 100% accurate in this regard. So sometimes you need to take into account that the orange, it might be a bit of weed, or the green might be a bit of silt, or that the yellow, it might not always be fish. It could be quite thin weed. So you always need to remember that, and don't just take the colours for gospel. You need to learn how to read these to get the most out of them. At the moment, however, what I'm pretty sure is we've got a little bit of silt and a soft orange bottom. So somewhere like this, I would be quite happy to present on, because it's very thick, it's very thin silt, because we've not got that thick green line anymore. It's been condensed quite a bit, and it's starting to lighten up a little bit, that orange. Okay, it's not like white, it's not rock hard, but it's still presentable. However, we've not come onto that shallow yet. I want to fish just off the end of that drop-off, and I can actually find, with this deeper, exactly where that drop-off is. What we've just found there is a nice, harder area, as you can see with the white, so that's something to definitely be looking at. And now we're starting to come up off that drop-off. You can see us going into shallower water now. So I found where that drop-off is, and just before the drop-off on the way out, I did find an area that looked a little bit firmer. So now what I can do is, I've gone to the left, and I can actually pull the head of the bushwhacker a little bit more to the right by putting tension on the line, like I said earlier, to try and steer it around. A little bit of pain with this overhanging tree, but said right now, wherever I drop it, I'll be happy that I'm presented. The bottom, there's a little bit of silt there, there's not loads. Like I've got that thin green layer of something soft, which is, like I said, either weed or silt, but because it's a consistent consistent layer, I'm pretty sure it's silt. If it was weed, like I said, it'd be sticking up all over the place. But I'm just trying to find a slightly firmer bottom that I'm sure I found on the way out. I've been a little bit further back. You can see how accurate you can be with this. You can really manoeuvre over tiny little areas and know exactly what you're fishing over. We've really just dropped down there then. There we go. What a spot that is. Right, so that is absolutely incredible what I've just found. I need to go forward a little bit because that was that spot I was telling you about before where we found a really firm bottom. That is actually perfect, that spot. I can't believe I found that. So we found a really clear bottom in amongst some weed. It actually drops down. That's definitely a carp hole. We've got the white. The whiteness shows how firm that bottom is. We just need to try and locate it again. We can see where that's dropped down into the harder bottom. It's nice and clear. Make sure we're exactly on it because there is a bit of weed around there. As you can see, that green's coming up again. We don't want to be fishing on that green. We want to be fishing on that firm bottom. Got to come back or go forward. When you're trying to fish these really tiny little holes, sometimes you do have to be a bit patient with it. But with a spot like that, I think it's going to be worth the wait, to be honest. Yes, and that is a firm drop, just as I expected. This is a silty lake, so if I wasn't on that spot, it would have been quite a soft drop. But that was a nice, proper drop. One thing I'd say, and I didn't really mention it just then because I was trying to be quite quick, is once you've found that spot, what I'll do is I'll go over it to the point where the spot ends, and I'll come back a little bit and then drop it. What you've got to remember is that the deeper is a little bit, not much, but yeah, 10 centimetres further in front than where your rig's going to be. Especially if you're feeling it down, it's going to be even more. So you've got to remember that the deeper's reading just in front of where you're going to drop, and if you want to drop exactly where you are, you need to give a little bit of slack and follow it all the way down. Don't have it on a tight line like you would if you cast, because you're going to get that swing back. If you want to fish exactly what you're looking at, go a little bit further than you'd actually like to be fishing, because obviously that's what means that the bushwhacker head's going to be over where the deeper was previously. If you go that little bit further forward and then follow it down on the drop. But yeah, that was a pretty perfect spot, to be honest. So I'm quite happy with how that's turned out.